title, Echoes of the Departed. The train station stood as a relic of a bygone era, its grandeur now faded into a shadow of its former glory. Dilapidated bricks crumbled under the weight of time, while rust gnawed at the once polished metal fixtures. Despite its dereliction, it remained a vital hub for the small town of Ravenwood, nestled deep within the mist-shrouded woods. Every evening, as the last light of day flickered over the horizon, the station became a ghostly haven. Passengers hurried through its echoing halls, eager to escape the encroaching darkness. But one among them bore a secret burden, a darkness far more sinister than the night itself. Lena Tanner, a weary traveler haunted by memories of loss, stepped onto the platform with trembling steps. Her eyes darted nervously around the deserted station, sensing an oppressive weight in the air. Ignoring the chill that clung to her skin like icy fingers, she clutched her bag tighter and hurried toward the ticket counter. "Ticket to Crestview, please," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The ticket agent glanced up, his eyes reflecting the weariness of someone who had seen too much. With a silent nod, he slid a ticket across the counter, his lips pressed into a thin line. As Lena moved to board the train, a sudden movement caught her eye. In the dimly lit corner of the station, a figure lurked in the shadows. She froze, her heart hammering in her chest as she strained to make out the silhouette. But before she could react, the figure vanished like smoke in the wind. Shaking off her unease, Lena boarded the train and sank into her seat, her thoughts consumed by the encounter. Was it merely a trick of the light, or something more sinister? She pushed the thought aside, chiding herself for succumbing to paranoia. The train lurched into motion, its wheels screeching against the tracks as it barreled into the night. Lena watched the passing landscape with a sense of detachment, her mind adrift in a sea of memories. Hours passed in a blur, until finally the train rumbled to a halt at a desolate station. Lena peered out the window, her heart sinking at the sight of the dilapidated platform. This was not Crestview, she realized, with a sinking feeling. As she stepped onto the deserted platform, a chill wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of decay. Goosebumps prickled along Lena's skin as she scanned her surroundings, her senses on high alert. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling in the silence. There was no response but the echo of her own words, swallowed by the darkness. Panic surged within her, threatening to engulf her fragile composure. Clutching her bag tightly, she set off down the deserted platform, desperate to find any sign of civilization. But the station seemed to stretch on endlessly, its corridors twisting and turning like a labyrinth. Each shadow seemed to leer at her, each creak of the floorboards sending shivers down her spine. She quickened her pace, the urgency of escape driving her forward. Suddenly, a faint sound reached her ears, a soft whisper, barely audible above the rustling of the trees. Lena froze, her breath catching in her throat as she strained to listen. It came again, closer this time, a voice laden with malice. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice trembling with fear. No answer came, but the whispering grew louder, converging on her like a swarm of malevolent insects. With a strangled cry, Lena broke into a run, her footsteps echoing through the empty station. But the more she ran, the more the station seemed to resist her escape. Corridors shifted and twisted, leading her in circles, as if mocking her futile attempts. Despair clawed at her heart as she realized the truth. She was trapped, ensnared in a nightmare from which there was no waking. With nowhere left to run, Lena stumbled to a halt, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she sank to her knees, her mind consumed by terror. And in that moment of despair, a figure emerged from the darkness, its features obscured by shadows. "Lena," it whispered, its voice dripping with malice. "You cannot escape." Lena recoiled in horror, her eyes widening in disbelief. The figure drew closer, its form shifting and contorting with unnatural grace. And as it stepped into the dim light, Lena's blood ran cold. It was her own reflection that stared back at her, twisted and distorted into a grotesque parody of humanity. A scream tore from Lena's throat as she realized the truth. She was not alone in the station. She was being hunted by a darkness that lurked within her own soul. In a desperate bid for survival, Lena scrambled to her feet and fled into the depths of the station, her mind consumed by terror. But no matter how fast she ran, the darkness pursued her, its tendrils stretching out to ensnare her in its grasp. As Lena stumbled through the labyrinthine corridors, she caught glimpses of other lost souls, passengers who had fallen prey to the station's malevolent influence. Their eyes were hollow, their faces twisted in silent screams of agony. Driven by desperation, Lena pressed on, her will to survive eclipsing her fear. But with each passing moment, the darkness closed in around her, suffocating her with its oppressive weight. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, Lena stumbled upon a glimmer of light, a doorway leading out of the station and into the night beyond. With a surge of adrenaline, she raced toward it, her heart pounding in her chest. But as she reached out to grasp the handle, a voice echoed through the darkness, freezing her in her tracks. "You cannot escape, Lena," it whispered, its words carrying the weight of inevitability. "You belong to me." Lena recoiled in horror, her mind reeling with the implications of the voice's words. But before she could respond, a blinding light enveloped her, banishing the darkness and leaving her standing alone in the empty station. As dawn broke on the horizon, Lena emerged from the station, her body battered and bruised, but her spirit unbroken. Though the memory of that fateful night would haunt her for the rest of her days, she knew that she had faced the darkness within herself and emerged victorious. For in the depths of the train station, where the echoes of the departed lingered, Lena had discovered the true meaning of fear and the strength to overcome it.